Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Another practice report. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Really good time to join SoonerScoop if you're looking not just here for us on the YouTube, but what we actually do. Write stories. I know that we'll get into some of the stuff that you wrote about here on the back end with some maybe possible visits with portal guys coming in here over the next couple weeks. The portal season never stops, obviously. Really good time, though. Promo. Spring promo. Everybody come join the party over at SoonerScoop.com. It's $1 for a month, and it's been a really busy month. And I was telling somebody earlier today, George, that I think that we've spent more time at practice on Monday and Wednesday this week in maybe the 10 years combined that I've been on the beat. It's been awesome. Special thank you to Brent Venables for allowing us to come to practice. Mike Houck, everybody over there at within the football program. It's been great to get out there, and we went over there again on Wednesday. Had about an hour 45. Got about 30 minutes of actual footage of video of the guys out there. So it was, we did the report on Tuesday talking about some of the guys that impressed us. We saw a little bit more on Wednesday. Saw some one-on-one stuff with the offensive line, defensive line. It was just fun to get back out there again.
It was awesome. And some of the best stuff that we got to see, you were able to get on video. I mean, you mentioned the one-on-one stuff. You had David Stone going up against Daniel Akinkume. You had Nigel Smith going up against Spencer Brown, Heath Ozada and Grayson Halton going at it. So some really, really good stuff that you can check out on the YouTube page. The Sights and Sounds, definitely the best place to go check out all that stuff. I know I tweeted out some video of Bob Prisbillo as well. But it was fun. I mean, an hour and 45. We got to see pretty much everything but the team period where they go up and down the field. But we got to see some 7-on-7, some one-on-ones between the receivers and corners, all of that good stuff. So it was a lot to take away, and then got to talk to a handful of players after practice too, and got to learn a little bit more about some other guys.
Well, let's start there. We talked to Dasan McCullough on Wednesday evening, and he kind of revealed some news that we had no idea. Not to say that we had no idea about, but I think that we did have questions about kind of what happened to him a year ago at the cheetah position. It sounds like he was dealing with a knee injury, especially on the back end of the season, sustained up at in Stillwater, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, he got hurt in the Bedlam game. He said he hurt actually both knees, ended up having to get meniscus surgery in one of them. I think he was also dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury. So he played through it. If I remember correctly, he played the final 3-4 games there, played in the bowl game, but he was just limited, and you could tell in his play. And it was also clear that OU wasn't going to put him in certain situations out there, especially in coverage. So I think hearing from him was super interesting in terms of, okay, now it's kind of like Javante Barnes. It's like, what happened to Dasan McCullough? Because he was so good early in the year. He had the huge play against Texas on the goal line stand, and all of a sudden he disappears. It's like, what was going on? Well, he was dealing with an injury.
All in all, a very frustrating first year in Norman, especially coming off of the year that he had as a freshman at Indiana. Here is Dasan talking about the injury and just kind of the frustrations of his first year in Norman.
How do you characterize 2023? Happy with it? Disappointed?
Frustrated. I say frustrated with the injuries, just going back and forth. Even from, week one, I got hurt the second play of the game against Arkansas State and had that high ankle sprain. So I would just say there was a lot of frustration going on last year with me. But, leaving that in the rear view, looking forward to this year is about to be one of those years. So basically both of my knees had got injured against Oklahoma State while I was getting cut blocked a couple different times during the game. So they kind of messed both of them up during that game. So I just finished out the rest of the season. I had meniscus surgery after the season on my left knee, and I had quad tendonitis on my right. So just, rehabbing both of those, but we're back feeling good though.
Good Lord, how frustrating was that just for both knees like that?
Very, especially because it was like back-to-back series that happened. So it was definitely frustrating. So I'm just glad now that the training staff and the coaches are working with me, get me back to 100% ASAP.
One of the interesting parts about being able to go out to practice and kind of view where these guys are at, it was very noticeable. He's working a lot with the linebackers, played at the cheetah position a year ago, said that he's still working over there, but it sounds like he's going through a little bit of a position change this spring.
Yeah, he told us he's playing will linebacker, which, again, like you said, you watch the individual drills, you watch him go through inside period or whatever it is, and he's working at inside linebacker. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for him because they're pretty stacked at linebacker.
Right.
So Can he beat out a Kip Lewis or, a Jaron Canick, Kobe McKenzie, some of these other guys? Lewis Carter has looked really good so far. That makes that linebacker room even more loaded. And you look at Cheetah, and you might say, well, they don't have a ton of bodies there. Well, you get Justin Harrington back. Kendall Dolby played really well last year. Woodi Washington, a veteran guy, is playing some Cheetah. You've got Samuel Omosigo, who they put out a clip today on OU Football's Twitter of him intercepting a pass. So he's been playing really well.
Who threw it?
Brennan Zerbrug.
Okay.
Zerbrug. Is it
Okay.
Brug?
Zerbrug.
Yeah, whatever.
All right. Well, take his scholarship away.
Yeah,
Kidding.
exactly. Yeah, no. But I think that Cheetah position is going to be really interesting because you have so many different guys, and it's just, where does Dasan McCullough fit in? And I was telling you before this a little bit that, maybe he's a guy that you just use in special circumstances. Maybe you bring him in on certain situations, on certain downs to either rush the passer or, he's really good out in the flat, breaking up the screen passes, those sorts of things where maybe you see that coming. But I just don't know where exactly he fits. I know he said that he's enjoying playing will linebacker. He feels like that's his best spot right now in terms of where he's most comfortable. So we'll see. But I think it's just good news to have that type of an athlete back in terms of being healthy.
Here he is talking about his fit at the will position.
I mean, I love it. I feel natural playing will. I get a lot of opportunities to show my rushing skills and to be able to, rush the passer and, be manned on tight ends and be able to show, really who I am as a complete player. I feel like that will gives me a good chance to do that. It's been fun. It's definitely been fun, and you guys don't know, but there's a lot of turnover between Will and Cheetah too. So it's not a huge difference as in just learning it. So the biggest difference is just setting the line and doing stuff like that, just the small details around it. So I'd say I'm getting a lot better.
It's kind of been a theme here over the course of some of these first interviews that we're talking with guys is not to put it just in a negative light. I guess it's been a negative for them. It's kind of been a what the hell happened. And it was good to finally talk to Kaden Helms, the tight end out of Nebraska that simply just hasn't really been able to get his career started at Oklahoma here over the first 2 years.
Yeah, and I don't really know what his injury exactly was. I think it was a leg injury at some point last year. We didn't see him at all a year ago. I don't think he suited up for a game. I'm pretty sure he didn't go through any of fall camp. So to just see him and talk to him and kind of get an understanding of where he's at health-wise, because he looks fantastic.
Right.
You look at him out there and you're like, okay, that guy definitely, looks the part, and he's someone that can maybe help that tight end room that struggled a year ago. But just hearing that he's able to start to practice a little bit, I think he mentioned that the first week of practice, he was actually practicing. Right now, he's been mostly just going through walkthroughs, and it sounds like maybe he'll get to practice here next week or in a couple of weeks before the spring game. They're kind of easing him back into it. But he's somebody, like, you look at that tight end room, maybe he's someone that can step up and can contribute, in a room that, again, you've got like 5 different guys. You're like, I think they can play, but you haven't seen them. They've got talent. It's just a lot of inexperience.
A lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
We talked to Kaden and just kind of checking in on these frustrating first 2 years in Norman. Here he is after practice on Wednesday.
My health's pretty good, actually. I haven't been practicing. I was practicing the beginning of spring ball, kind of getting back into things. I'm kind of dealing with some minor stuff right now, not even knee related. So I'll be back here next week or in the next couple of days. So overall, really excited about how I've come along regarding my health status and stuff like that. So I'm excited to get back with the guys.
How frustrating has this entire experience been, just not being able to stay healthy and get out on the field?
I'm not gonna lie, it's been probably one of the hardest tests in my life. I know God, He has a plan for me, and I'm just trying my best, stick to that plan. But I mean, I can kind of find some good out of it. I've never been more motivated than I am, more hungry to get back, like I just said. And I think this will really help me kind of get a new perspective for things, appreciate what I have for what it is a little bit better. And I think once I fully get back, I'm just going to be a different person overall.
You also just sick of that answering the question.
I mean, I get it. I was out last season, so obviously there's going to be some questions about it. Nothing. It doesn't strike me too much. I just know I'm excited to get back with my guys, get back to doing what I love. So.
Has to be frustrating to be around the program and not be able to really contribute, be able to get even out onto the practice field.
Yeah.
So it was good to just, if nothing else, be able to see him suit up on Tuesday or Wednesday when we were out there at practice. And I know that there's a lot of people that have probably given up on Kaden Helms being a contributor or being somebody that could be counted on at the tight end position. It's almost a little unfair to give up on him, though. And you look at some of the video that we got yesterday of the tight end room. We talked about just kind of the restructuring of that room. It looks a lot different. There's a lot to like, though, as you see Bauer Sharp, the transfer from Southeastern Louisiana. He's kind of been the talk of the transfers that we talked about on the Unofficial 40 podcast this week.
It's my understanding he's been taking the majority, if not all, of the first team reps so far through spring practice. And part of that's Jake Roberts hasn't been going through practice. I think he's dealing with a little bit of a foot issue, but I think he could be a big difference maker on this offense. I mean, he's super athletic. He's a smart guy, and I think he's pretty physical. I know that he's somebody that they think can be a really good run blocker as well. And then you look at Devon Mitchell, and that's just a different type of human being that Oklahoma hasn't had in some time. And you wonder how quickly can he pick it up. I don't know if they trust him yet as a run blocker, but he's definitely somebody you can use down in the red zone and in different formations and those sorts of things. And then it comes down to, what does Cade McIntyre look like? What does, Kaden Helms? Can Kaden Helms get healthy? Because I think Kaden Helms is a guy that you can split out and do a lot of different things. He's really fast. I know that's you go and watch his high school film. That's what he was known for, is he could get down the field
Just
pretty
a great
quickly.
football player.
Yeah, so if he can get healthy, Cade McIntyre is also coming back from an injury. I think that you feel pretty good about the tight end room, especially considering where it was a year ago. You just need to see it from some of these guys.
Right.
Because all of these guys that we're talking about right now, other than Jake Roberts, who's played quite a bit of college football, the rest of these guys haven't played a lot, especially at this level. I mean, Bauer Sharp was a quarterback, changed the tight end, played obviously at a lower level. Can he make an impact, in the SEC? We'll see. And then you just got a bunch of young guys who are looking to get on the field.
It seems like there is a lot of excitement, though, about that room. We talked to Jackson Arnold about it on Monday. We talked to, Kaden Helms. I asked him basically, you got Joe John kind of in that, bigger role as a co-offense coordinator alongside Seth Luttrell. It would seem the tight end, if you have some depth there, it's going to be a unit that is used a little bit more than maybe we saw a year ago in year number 2 under Brent.
Well, and you look back to how they used Braden Willis, that first year under Brent, and I would expect that to be more of what you see this year, and they might even use him more. You mentioned it. Joe John Finley, former tight end, Seth Luttrell, former fullback. I mean,
they
these
know
guys,
the importance of those positions.
Exactly. These guys are going to want to use those. I could see some more, 2 tight end sets. You could see a guy in the backfield playing kind of a fullback type role, passing them, out of the backfield. I think they're also going to use them a lot as blockers. Last year, they just didn't have that, and they had to. They were forced to go more 4 wide receivers or 5 wide receivers because they didn't have any tight ends. It was Austin Stogner, and that was it. And so I think that you're going to see them utilize that position a lot more just because they have more bodies, and I think they're just more talented there.
Yeah, and it seems like that's kind of the par for the course for just about a number of positions out there. But the one that I think that we talked about a little bit on Tuesday was the defensive back room. And I think that you look at that thing, and we've now seen 2 practices so far. You can pick out a number of guys. We can go down the list of guys that it's like he could play. He looks like he could play. He looks like he's ready. There's a number of guys that are ready to go.
It's incredible when you talk about how far that secondary room has come. When you look at the safety,
this has been a multiple year, turnover in terms of body style.
Think about where it was even a couple years ago. Sure. Justin Broyles was your starting safety.
Well, that Justin doesn't deserve the unintended.
I mean, I'm just saying
shot.
though. Look at where they had Justin Broyles starting back there, and look at where they're now. They've got Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears Jennings. You've got Billy Bowman. You got Woodi Washington playing some safety. I mean, even young guys like Jaden Hardy, Michael Boganowski, Reggie Powers. Like these are. I mean, that's like 8 guys that I just mentioned.
They've recruited very, very well. Braden Hall, and we've talked about it before, but Braden Hall and Jay Valai have done an exceptional job of turning over both of their rooms, safety and cornerback. and giving themselves options.
Yeah, I mean, the cornerback room, I think, is even deeper. When you look at bringing Des Malone, who we've talked a lot about, I think he's going to play. Kenai Walker is the guy that everybody forgets about. You've got the young guys, Josiah Wagner and Makari Vickers, who, going into year 2, they played quite a bit as true freshmen. You wonder, can they take that next step? And you got young guys like Eli Bowen, who I know Woodi Washington mentioned yesterday.
Jacoby Johnson that came in with Josiah Wagner as well as Makari Vickers.
It's deep, man. It's deep. It's super deep. And that's why it's interesting talking to a guy like Woodi, who's kind of playing all over the place, kind of wherever they need him to. Kendall Dolby as well is another guy that I think is kind of just playing wherever. They just have so many bodies. It's going to be interesting to see how do they get all these guys on the field.
On Wednesday night, George asked Woodi, is this the deepest room that just as a whole in the secondary that he's been a part of?
Definitely, guys like Des Malone and Eli Bowen's coming in. He's playing a lot of positions for us right now, and guys like Kendall Doby even. Those guys can play nickel. They can go outside and play everything. Along with also Peyton Bowen, he can go back and play safety and come down and play nickel. So, the competitive depth that we have this year is unbelievable, and I don't think since I've been here, it hasn't been even close to that.
So here is a bunch of video that we were able to get from, Wednesday afternoon, and a lot of different body styles certainly out there. I think that we've kind of rehashed some of the guys that we were really impressed with. You see Jaden Rowe, 27 there, and it's hard to get from Kenai Walker. You have somebody in Robert Spears-Jennings coming up that I feel like out of all of the guys in that secondary that we spoke with, it seems like not only has the light come on, but this is his time. He's the older guy in that group, and it seems like he's really kind of taken that head strong.
Yeah, I mean, he was telling, I think it was you and me over there talking to him about Billy Bowman coming back, and he mentioned, he wanted Billy to come back because he wasn't ready to be the old guy yet, but he's still become the old guy in the room, and I think that he's kind of matured into a more leadership role, and I think he knows that they're going to rely on him to play this next year. And you saw it at the end of the season. He played a lot. He came in that Bedlam game, replaced Key Lawrence in the Bedlam game, came up, made some big plays.
He's been great. We all love Coach Alley.
I definitely think that people need to be more aware of. I know you and I have talked about him a lot, but it would not shock me at all if he's starting all 12 games next year for Oklahoma. He's very physical. He reads plays well. I think he's really smart. Last year I think he would have played more if it wasn't for the shoulder injury that he was dealing with. And then obviously, like I said, came in late. So he has definitely looked the part. I think Kenai Walker at corner would not shock me at all if he ends up winning a starting job. He was really good in the one-on-one session yesterday, as well as Makari Vickers.
Not to mention you have the two incumbents in Woodi Washington as well as Gentry Williams, who obviously is not going through practice, coming off of shoulder surgery, I believe, during the offseason. So he's out there. He's just in tennis shoes, kind of manning around and doing a little bit of coaching himself, kind of like we were talking about Billy did at practice.
Billy's
Monday.
like another coach out there.
Yeah,
I mean he's yelling at guys. He's got his own play sheet. I noticed yesterday where he's kind of taking some of the young guys. I noticed he took Michael Boganowski off to the side one time and was talking to him about some things. So having that guy back, and then obviously Danny Stutzman, I think is just massive. This is a very veteran defense,
and that's why I think that the transition and welcoming in Zac Alley to take over the defense coordinator role, it seems like it's a very comfortable spot for him because he has so much kind of leadership to be able to, I guess, lean on in a way. And
I think they take it well
at every level of the defense as well.
Yeah, I think the older guys. Look, a young guy may not take coaching as well as somebody that has taken it, especially a bunch of guys that have taken it from Brent Venables, right? And I think that's one thing that we've heard. It's been a common theme hearing from these guys. It's like, okay, Brent would tell you one thing. Zac Alley comes in and explains it to you a little bit better and is able to maybe dumb it down, I think is what one guy said, and kind of teach it in a new way that's simpler for them to understand. I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen with Zac Alley is his communication skills. And like you said, you have so many older guys that kind of already understand this. It makes his job probably a little bit easier. And it sounds like he's put his own twist on kind of what they're doing defensively. He's going to have a hand. I don't know if he's calling plays, but he's definitely having a hand in everything they're doing defensively right now.
No doubt about it. We have been able here over the last couple of days to talk to some of the members of that defense that are in those meeting rooms with Zac Alley as he kind of presents everything that is, as he is the new defense coordinator in Norman. And here's what they have to say about him.
Oh, he's been great. We all love Coach Alley. He does make it a lot more simpler for us, so he simplifies it for us. You know, we can talk to him whenever. He's a younger guy, so it just feels more relatable too when he's talking to us. So, you know, I'm a big fan of him.
Coach Alley's a great guy. He makes the meetings fun. He kind of dumbs it down for everybody, just so everybody's at the same learning curve, and he just helps everybody out. And he's here to help us. Like he doesn't get mad when you mess up. He explains why you messed up, and as long as you don't do it again, you're fine. Yeah.
When Coach Alley came in, you know, he sounded just like BV, and we're all looking at him like, yo. But yeah, it's funny, but it also makes us work harder and go harder for him.
Just making the playbook and making your reads just easier, you know, making you just play fast, think less, basically. Last year, we got stuck up in a lot of guys were just thinking too much and not being able to play. But, you know, Coach V's still there, and he's still, you know, Coach V still has his say-so and everything. But I would say the biggest difference is, you know, Alley's just taking more charge. Like, he's actually running a lot of the stuff now. I'd say last year, you know, Coach V was a big portion of just like our indie and things of that nature. Now it's all Coach Alley. Like, he's leading our indie. Coach V might come over and stop by and just see how we're doing, but he's not the one actually leading the drills, stuff like that. Even when we get the team separate, Coach Alley's the one that's fixing all the adjustments and stuff like that. Coach V's giving his insight too, but he's really letting Alley, you know, kind of take his role.
I think we both heard that clip and we kind of looked at each other like, that's interesting.
It is, and it goes back to when we reported the story months ago about why they were making this hire, why they were making this move. And Brent's talked about it. He wanted to bring in somebody young. He wanted to bring in somebody that he trusts to kind of run this thing. And like I said, I don't know if we'll ever find out who's really calling the defense, but it's very clear Zac Alley is going to have his hands all over this thing in terms of what they're doing schematically, how they're running, how they're preparing for offenses and those sorts of things, and how he's teaching. I tweeted it out, I think yesterday. It's been interesting to watch Brent, because Brent, typically you would always find him with the inside linebackers kind of running the drills like Dasan McCullough was saying there. Now he's kind of everywhere. He's roaming around. He's you know, I think he was with the safeties a lot on Wednesday. You know, he'll be with the quarterback sometimes. He's been doing a lot on special teams. It's now Zac Alley kind of running that thing, and it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like. Maybe do they run something schematically a little bit different? Do they run a little bit more 3-3-5 defense, which is what Zac Alley's kind of known for, you know, back at when he was at Louisiana Monroe and Jacksonville State. So it's kind of fun, and I'm excited to talk to Zac Alley, because I think that hearing from some of these guys be like, yeah, he's like a Brent Venables clone. I kind of want to hear from him ourselves and kind of make that assumption, but he definitely seems like he's been a huge boost for this defense.
One of the questions from the Crimson Corner, and they were talking about maybe moving to the 3-3-5 and maybe something more similar to what Zac Alley was able to do at Jacksonville State. Is it worrisome knowing that you don't necessarily – do they have what they need up front to run a three-man front?
It's a good question. You know, I think they have a lot of really good defensive ends, which makes you lean maybe towards more doing a four-man front. But, you know, if they can go out and get maybe a defensive lineman in the transfer portal, a veteran guy that can come in and do that, then you'd feel a little bit better about it. But you also have so many great playmakers at linebacker and safety that we mentioned that you could you probably want to have more of those guys out there. And all of a sudden, if you can have a front of, you know, Ethan Downs and DJ Terry and Grayson Halton out there, and then your three linebackers are Danny Stutzman, Kip Lewis, and Dasan McCullough, that's a pretty good front six. And then you got back at safety a handful of guys. I think that you can do some mixing and matching. I think they're going to stick mostly to that four-man front for now. But, you know, we saw in the Alamo Bowl, they ran some 3-3-5, and I would not be surprised if they do some of that. It just depends on the matchup. You know, a lot of it depends on what the other team is doing offensively. But I think that you have a very valid concern when it comes to having the personnel up front. Now, and that's why they're active in the portal right now.
And obviously, I think with what they were able to bring in, I think anybody that follows Oklahoma football probably well aware of the defensive line class coming in as freshmen. Yeah. It's progressing in the right direction. You need to get a couple more David Stones. You need to get a couple more Jaden Jacksons. You need a couple more Nigel Smiths, who looked impressive on Wednesday at practice. So it's going to be interesting. Long way to go, obviously, but all the returns here through the first – I guess 2-ish weeks of spring ball. Sounds like Zac Alley's kind of fitting in pretty well with everybody that is, in his room.
Yeah, everything's great in the spring, right?
Right.
I mean,
they haven't allowed a touchdown. Everything's great.
Right. So, I mean, you kind of take it with a grain of salt, but just from watching them out there, it seems like guys are understanding this defense better, and they should. I mean, you've got a bunch of guys that have played in this system now for a couple years, and you've got a bunch of coaches that have stuck around.
Right.
I think that they haven't had a ton of staff turnover, and you bring in a guy like Zac Alley, who you'd say, oh well, he's new, but he's the exact same as Brent Venables. He's worked with Todd Bates. He's worked with Miguel Chavis. He hasn't worked with Jay Valai. I think that's the one coach. He's worked with Brandon Hall, but he's worked with these guys. He fits right in. So I think that this defense, your expectations should be high for them because you do have a good coaching staff and you do have a lot of veteran players returning. It's just, can some of those young guys, especially up front, like you mentioned, step up and start to contribute?
Kind of goes back to what we talked about even with the offensive hires, and it was kind of a theme of that immediate portion of the offseason during the winter of continuity within a staff. And I think that that's a lot of, kind of coach speak or whatever you want to call it, but at the same time, there is a method to the madness. That was a point of emphasis over the winter for Oklahoma to keep the continuity on that side of the football, or on both sides of the football, and especially within the coaching staff. So it's going to be kind of interesting to kind of see how this all unfolds. Hopefully we'll be back out at practice. Just in terms of what we saw on Wednesday in comparison to what we saw on Monday is a pretty similar type of practice. Anything else stick out to you? I know that we were able to watch a little bit more 7-on-7, and you came back saying that Lewis Carter might be somebody that, and we've talked about him right here on the YouTube show before, might be somebody that you need to really keep an eye on here moving forward.
Lewis Carter and Samuel Omosigo, both those guys I think could end up having bigger roles, and I think they're pushing those guys in front of them for those jobs. And I'm not saying Lewis Carter is going to go out there and start week 1, but I do think that you could see him all of a sudden be in the rotation at that linebacker spot. Very physical guy, not the tallest guy out there, but super strong, super powerful, not afraid to come after you. I think they really like him maybe in some blitz packages because he's just very physical and quick.
I remember going back to when Josh went and saw him in high school even, and there was a lot of talk about he's a bullet. He comes
so fast,
flying down the field, and a very physical player. I think that when you start thinking about guys that Brent has identified as football players, like, doesn't really matter about measurables as much as can this guy go find the football and tackle the carrier. He kind of fits that bill.
He's like Kip Lewis a little bit, but he's obviously built different in terms of his physical stature. But he reminds me in terms of instincts, like a guy that can just go find the football, like you said. And so, it's going to be interesting to see how does he grow. Can he kind of fit into that? Samuel Omosigo, same way. I think that he's super athletic. They're kind of playing him inside linebacker, cheetah a little bit. I think that he's one of the more athletic players on the team. I think they're just trying to find ways, how do we get this guy onto the football field? It's just difficult. They have a good problem because they've got so many guys that they're looking to try and get out there and that are playing good football that you're like, okay, well, where does everybody fit in?
Yeah, and I guess now is the time that you offer the always, at this point of the spring, just because he looks good doesn't mean it's going to come together for 12, 13, 14, 15 Saturdays during the fall.
Well, and it's the same, like you have all these people in my mentions talking about the one-on-ones, and they're like, oh, the offensive line sucks because one guy got beat in one rep in one practice in March. Let's not forget where we are, people. Don't freak out about one video that's out there or one rep that was lost or won or whatever. So it's a long ways to go, and it's fun to talk about all these guys, but the reality is some of these guys aren't gonna make
Not
it.
Everybody can play.
Exactly. And so but again, I think they have a good problem on their hands. It's not, it's been a long time that we've been able to sit here and talk about the Oklahoma defense the way that we are right now in terms of how many guys that you feel good about.
As you just went through that spiel of it was one play, don't base a lot on the one play. I think we both walked out of practice on Wednesday. Heath Ozaida had a really good day on the offensive line.
Look,
you mentioned
I've been on his train for a while.
On the unofficial 40 this week, you mentioned that you wouldn't be surprised at all if he ended up winning a guard spot.
Right now, I think he's the front runner to win that left guard spot on the offensive line. I think he's had a really good offseason. He was a guy that even last year we heard a lot about.
There was a lot of buzz during the Alamo Bowl practices.
The Alamo Bowl. I mean, I think that this is a guy that's put on good weight. He looks really strong. in the one-on-ones yesterday. I've not seen him lose a one-on-one yet in practice that we've been able to watch. I put out a clip, I think it was against Grayson Halton, and Grayson Halton's been really good in practice, and Heath Ozeta kind of controlled him. So, I think that he's somebody that, when you're talking about the offensive line, everybody wants to say they're not going to be any good up front. Heath Ozeta, I think, is going to be a pretty darn good replacement there. Kaden Green, that was Kaden Green's spot.
Right.
And if I'm not saying Heath Ozeta is going to be Kaden Green, but I do think that Heath Ozeta can be a really good football player for Oklahoma and somebody that is starting to assert himself on that starting offensive line.
Lastly, we do need to throw it out there because it was thrown out on Wednesday, was Troy Everett sustaining an injury at practice on Wednesday. Yeah. Listen, I don't know if there should be any cause for concern. It's obviously concerning when somebody has to be helped off the field, though.
I think he's going to be okay. From my vantage point, he kind of limped off under his own power a little bit. I've also just heard from some people that early returns are it's not as serious as it looked. So
Very
we'll
positive.
See. I'm sure he's getting like tests or whatever done to see. I'm sure he might miss the next week or two, or he might even miss the rest of spring. We'll see. But it would be a huge loss. I mean, look, he's another guy that I think's had a really good spring. Somebody that they've kind of penciled in as the possible starter there, kind of competing with Josh Bates at that starting center spot. So it would be a big loss, but we'll see. I'm not going to say yet because we just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
But, I think that it'll be interesting to see, can Josh Bates step up? He's somebody that, again, kind of like Heath Ozeta, we heard a lot about last year as somebody that they really liked. He was just young. So maybe an opportunity for someone else.
No doubt about it. One of the reasons that we were telling you about, it's a good time to join SoonerScoop.com, and it's because of stories that you wrote like on Thursday. You caught up with Philip Blighty. He's an Indiana transfer. He entered the transfer portal, and Oklahoma's going to bring him in on April 12th. He was supposed to come in. I'll get this, all right? I'll get it. He was supposed to come in for the spring game. He's going to come in a week before, though. You caught up with him, actually, on Thursday to kind of talk about his interest in Oklahoma. Pretty good reviews as far as his relationship with Todd Bates. And
definitely
certainly important when you're talking about adding another defensive lineman that could add a little bit of depth. And he, obviously he started 11 games last year for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, 6'3", 295. He would come in and be, I think, the second biggest defensive lineman behind DJ Terry for Oklahoma. Like you said, a lot of experience. Not a ton of production. I think 69 tackles, 10.5 tackles for, 69 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss. And 2.5 sacks in his career. Last year at Indiana, he started 11 games, 4 tackles for loss, 30 total tackles, no sacks. But I think when you talk about losing a guy like Jacob Lacey and his veteran presence and just his experience of playing college football, if you can bring in a guy like Philip Blighty, it would just give you some more bodies and also give those young guys some more time. Because as much as I love David Stone and Jaden Jackson and Nigel Smith and all these guys, I think that the more time you can give them to develop and grow and not just totally throw them into the fire, that the better. And I'm not talking about, David Stone sitting next year or Jaden Jackson and those guys not playing at all next year. I'm saying give them 4 or 5 games to kind of ease into it. And I think that he would be able to provide that. But all early returns on it, Blighty told me that he loves the Oklahoma coaching staff. I would even go as far to say the way he talked about Oklahoma, they're kind of the leader right now. I think they were his first offer when he got into the portal. They were one of the first teams to reach out to him. He's had a lot of communication with Todd Bates. Brent Venables has FaceTimed him several times. Even Emmett Jones, who Blighty started his career at Texas Tech. Emmett Jones was there obviously as the receivers coach at that same time. I think Emmett Jones has talked to him a little bit, which kind of crazy when you think about this. DJ Terry played at Kansas,
right,
when Emmett Jones was the receiver coach.
Emmett Jones is just a recruiting.
He's amazing. He's been one of the best hires they could have because
he's relentless about it.
Yes, because he also recruited DJ Terry. That was a big reason why they ended up getting him from Tennessee because he spent time at Kansas. So there's the overlap there with Emmett Jones. Zac Alley spoken to him, so he really likes Oklahoma. I will say, A&M and LSU are lurking. Those are 2 schools that he mentioned that he's hoping to visit at some point. He's also hoping to make his decision by the end of May. So this is very early in the process for him. But if Oklahoma can have a really good visit on April 12th, I think they'd feel really good about their chances. And maybe he doesn't make those other trips.
He told you, and that's one of the key kind of underlying I guess not urban rumors, but you'd never want a guy, and especially some of these transfer portal guys, once you get them to campus, it's kind of like all right, sign the paper, let's get this over with. He told you that he has visits planned for Washington, Arizona, OU, of course, coming up on April 12th, Texas A&M, and LSU. So we'll see. I mean, Oklahoma certainly sounds like it has made a little bit of an impression for him.
Great impression so far.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think NIL, I should say also, NIL is going to play a factor in this.
Well, it's naive to think that it's not playing a factor for anybody.
That's everybody
that's
in the portal. Yeah, and I think for him too, he's married and has 2 kids. I think that's important to him to make some money. But he also just said, hey, I want to have one great year and go to the NFL. And he feels like Todd Bates obviously has a track record of being able to do that. And so I think that Oklahoma's in a good spot right now. Ask me again in like 2 weeks, and we'll see how I feel.
We will. How about that? All right, that's going to be it for today's practice report.
I was just one more thing.
What?
It is opening day for baseball, and I would like to say that I'm pretty well representing my team. I don't see any Cubs gear on. Oh, wow. Quite the reveal. All right, there you go. You were shaming me today, but.
Name one Seattle Mariner.
Julio Rodriguez.
Okay. Well,
I cannot name you number 2.
Alex Verdugo just hit a grand slam. They're now tied with the Red Sox, who are scheduled to be in last in the American East.
Shout out Chris Evan.
Shout out Chris Evan. Yeah. Great dude up there. Does a great job with the social media stuff in Seattle. So for George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We will talk to you on the other side. Thank you for coming back for another practice report here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.